The Hidden Cost of Anger by Y full audiobook. Introduction. Anger is one of the most powerful emotions we carry. It rises quickly, burns fiercely, and often leaves behind damage we did not intend. Most people see anger as natural, and to some extent it is, but what is rarely understood is the hidden price it demands. It does not only affect our words or actions in a single heated moment. Anger lingers. It seeps into our relationships, weakens our health, and clouds our inner peace. Like fire, anger can provide warmth and strength when controlled, but when left unchecked, it burns everything in its path. This book is about uncovering the truth behind anger, exploring the costs it creates in our lives, and learning how to transform it into something constructive rather than destructive. The hidden cost of anger is not only in what we lose outwardly, but also in the silent suffering it plants within us. Chapter 1. The nature of anger. Anger begins as a spark. Sometimes it comes from an insult, sometimes from injustice, and other times from disappointment. It is the mind's way of saying something is wrong and demanding a response. In its rawest form, anger is energy, a surge of emotion designed to alert us and push us into action. Yet this energy often overwhelms reason. The body changes when anger rises. The heart beats faster, blood pressure increases, and adrenaline floods the system. We feel stronger, but that strength is deceptive. In reality, anger narrows our vision, making us focus only on the offense, not on the larger picture. This is where the cost begins. History is full of examples where anger has destroyed families, friendships, and even entire nations. A single moment of fury can break bonds that took years to build. What is worse is that most people, after calming down, regret their actions but cannot undo the harm. Anger creates words that cannot be taken back and actions that cannot be reversed. At the same time, anger hides beneath the surface in many lives. People may not explode outwardly, but they keep it inside. This silent anger eats away at mental health, creating bitterness, resentment, and depression. Whether expressed loudly or buried quietly, anger demands payment, and the cost is never small. Understanding anger begins with realizing it is not our enemy by nature. It is a messenger, a signal that something in our life needs attention, but if we do not learn to hear the message without being consumed by it, we end up paying far more than we ever imagined. Chapter 2. The emotional toll of anger. When anger becomes a frequent visitor in our lives, it does not leave quietly. It leaves behind cracks in our emotional world that slowly widen if left unattended. At first, it may feel like relief to release our fury, as if shouting, blaming, or even silently brooding clears the storm. But that is an illusion. Instead of cleansing, anger often plants deeper seeds of unrest. Emotionally, anger drains joy. A person who constantly feels irritated or ready to explode loses the ability to see beauty in simple things. Small annoyances overshadow moments of peace. Even when good experiences arrive, they are colored by an underlying tension that never fully relaxes. This is why anger often disguises itself as strength, but actually weakens the emotional heart. Anger also distorts perception. When carried too long, it convinces us that the world is against us, that people are enemies, and that situations are unfair by design. This mindset breeds suspicion and distance. Friendships feel fragile, relationships feel like battles, and trust disappears. It becomes harder to believe in the goodness of others, leaving one isolated even in a crowd. Another hidden toll is exhaustion. Living with constant anger is like carrying a heavy stone everywhere you go. At first, you may not notice its weight, but over time it wears you down. People who live with unresolved anger often feel drained, anxious, or restless without knowing why. The emotional body becomes fatigued, even if the mind insists it is fine. Perhaps the most damaging effect of anger is how it blinds us to love. Where anger rules, compassion cannot breathe. Where bitterness lingers, tenderness cannot grow. This emotional emptiness creates a cycle where relationships break down, leading to more loneliness and even more anger. The cost is not only personal peace, but also the warmth of human connection. Understanding the emotional toll of anger shows us that it is not just about losing control in heated moments. It is about how much of our inner life it steals quietly, little by little, until one day we realize joy has slipped out of reach. Chapter 3: The physical price of anger. The body does not lie. Every emotion we carry leaves its mark, and anger is one of the most damaging. While it feels like a storm in the mind, its waves crash through every part of the body. Science has shown what ancient wisdom has always hinted at, that anger is not only a state of mind but a burden on health. When anger rises, the body instantly goes into survival mode. Adrenaline surges, blood pressure climbs, and the heart races as if preparing for battle. This reaction is natural in moments of real danger, but when anger becomes frequent, the body remains trapped in that state of emergency. Over time, this constant stress wears down the heart, weakens blood vessels, and increases the risk of serious illness. High blood pressure is one of the clearest results of unchecked anger. The more often a person explodes or silently holds rage inside, the more strain is placed on the heart. Doctors have linked chronic anger to heart disease, strokes, and weakened immunity. The body simply cannot thrive when it is constantly flooded with stress hormones. Anger also affects digestion. Have you ever noticed your stomach tightening when you are furious, or feeling sick after an argument? That is no accident. The digestive system shuts down when the body prepares for conflict. When this happens often, it leads to ulcers, indigestion, and long-term digestive disorders. Sleep is another victim of anger. Those who carry unresolved rage toss and turn at night, replaying conversations or imagining future conflicts. This lack of rest weakens the body further, creating a cycle where exhaustion makes anger even harder to control. Even the immune system pays the price. Studies show that people who live with chronic anger fall sick more often and take longer to recover. The constant inner fire burns away not only peace, but also the body's natural defense. The physical cost of anger proves that this emotion is not harmless. It does not end when the shouting stops or when the face relaxes. The body remembers, and it carries the weight of every outburst. While many think of anger as only an emotional struggle, the truth is it can silently shorten life itself. Chapter 4: Anger and Relationships. Anger does not live alone. It always spills over into the lives of those around us. Families, friendships, and partnerships all feel its weight. One person's anger can shape the atmosphere of an entire household, turning what should be a place of comfort into a field of tension. In relationships, anger acts like a wall. Every sharp word or cold silence adds another brick, slowly blocking the connection that once felt natural and safe. When anger becomes a frequent response, trust begins to fade. Instead of turning toward each other in times of need, people start to pull away, fearing the storm that may come. In families, children often absorb the anger of parents. They may not understand the cause, but they feel the vibration of raised voices, the pressure of silence, and the fear of conflict. This leaves lasting impressions, teaching them to either mirror the same anger in adulthood or suppress their emotions altogether. Both paths carry deep scars. Friendships are not immune either. A single angry outburst can plant doubt where loyalty once stood. Friends may forgive, but they rarely forget. Over time, repeated displays of anger make people distance themselves, unwilling to carry the weight of someone else's storms. Romantic relationships perhaps suffer the most. Love thrives on tenderness, patience, and respect. Anger, when left unchecked, eats away at these qualities. What begins as small disagreements can grow into battles that erode intimacy. Couples who let anger dominate often find themselves speaking less, touching less, and eventually feeling less. The bond once filled with warmth becomes a cold contract of survival. But perhaps the deepest cost is loneliness. Anger isolates. The more it flares, the more others step back, leaving the angry person alone with their fire. What many do not realize is that anger, while demanding attention, ultimately pushes away the very connection it craves. The hidden cost in relationships is not just the arguments or the silence, but the gradual weakening of love. It is the way anger takes something precious and slowly, almost invisibly, drains it of life until only emptiness remains. Chapter 5: The Hidden Anger Within. Not all anger shouts. Some anger whispers from deep inside, buried under years of silence, politeness, or fear of conflict. Suppressed anger may look calm on the surface, but underneath it brews quietly, shaping thoughts, emotions, and even the body in ways that are often invisible until they erupt. People suppress anger for many reasons. Some are taught from childhood that expressing it is wrong, that to be good means to stay quiet, no matter how they feel. Others bury their anger out of fear of rejection, worried that speaking their truth will cost them relationships. Many convince themselves they have moved on, when in reality, they have only locked the anger away in a dark corner of the heart. But suppressed anger does not disappear. Instead, it changes form. It may show up as irritation at small things, as bitterness toward life, or as sarcasm that cuts without warning. For some, it becomes self-directed, turning into guilt, shame, or even depression. The energy of anger has to move somewhere, and when it is blocked, it moves inward. The body also pays the price of hidden anger. Chronic headaches, tension in the shoulders, and digestive issues often reveal what the lips refuse to say. Doctors often note that patients with repressed anger develop illnesses linked to stress because the unspoken emotions strain the body day after day. In relationships, suppressed anger creates distance. Instead of honest conversations, people withdraw, smiling on the outside while resenting on the inside. Over time, this hidden resentment poisons trust. A marriage, a friendship, or even a working relationship can collapse not from open fights, but from years of unspoken anger. The tragedy of suppressed anger is that it fools us into believing we are avoiding conflict, when in truth we are only planting seeds for greater conflict later. A lifetime of swallowing emotions eventually explodes, often in ways that feel disproportionate to the original cause. Learning to recognize suppressed anger is the first step toward freedom. It requires courage to admit that silence does not always mean peace, and politeness does not always mean love. Only when hidden anger is brought into the light can it be transformed into something healthier. Chapter 6. Anger and the Mind: How Thoughts Fuel the Fire. Every spark of anger begins in the mind. Long before it reaches the body or bursts out in words, it starts as a thought. Someone says something, does something, or perhaps fails to do what we expected, and instantly the mind begins to build a story around it. That story is what turns irritation into rage. The mind is a master storyteller. When anger arises, it gathers old memories to feed itself. One small insult today recalls 10 past insults. A small mistake from someone we love reminds us of every disappointment they ever caused. In this way, the mind collects fuel, stacking dry wood on the fire of anger until it becomes a blaze. Often, anger continues long after the event itself has passed. The reason is simple: the mind does not know how to let go. It replays the moment again and again, imagining different outcomes, sharper words we could have said, or punishments the other person deserves. This mental replay keeps the anger alive, even hours or days after the original spark. Worse still, the mind invents. It interprets silence as rejection, a look as judgment, or a delay as disrespect. In reality, the other person may not have meant anything harmful, but the mind fills in the blanks with its own assumptions, creating anger where none was truly necessary. The cycle is dangerous. The more we think angry thoughts, the stronger the emotion becomes. The stronger the emotion becomes, the more it clouds our thinking. In this state, reason disappears. We begin to justify the anger, to believe it is right, even when it is hurting us and others. Breaking this cycle requires awareness. When we catch the mind fueling anger with repeated stories, we can pause and ask, is this thought true? Is this memory helping me, or is it just feeding my pain? With practice, we begin to see that most of our anger lives not in the present moment, but in the stories our mind insists on telling. The hidden cost of anger is that it enslaves the mind, making it a prisoner of past wounds and imagined offenses. To reclaim freedom, we must learn to step back, to witness our thoughts instead of drowning in them. Only then can we stop fueling the fire and allow it to cool. Chapter 7. The Spiritual Dimension of Anger. Beyond the body, beyond the mind, anger touches something even deeper. It unsettles the spirit. Human beings are not just physical and mental creatures, we are also spiritual, carrying within us a longing for peace, love, and connection with something greater than ourselves. Anger clouds this longing, covering the light of the spirit like dark smoke hides the sun. When anger dominates, silence becomes impossible. The inner voice that guides us, the quiet wisdom within, gets drowned out by the noise of rage and resentment. Instead of feeling connected to others and to life itself, anger creates separation. It whispers, "You are alone, you must fight, you must defend." This illusion of separation is one of anger's greatest spiritual costs. Many traditions teach that anger is like a chain binding the soul. It keeps us tied to the cycle of reaction and suffering. In this way, anger does not only harm relationships or health, it slows down our growth, preventing us from rising into higher understanding. A heart filled with anger cannot experience true compassion, and without compassion, spiritual progress is stalled. At the same time, anger reveals something important. It shows us where we are still wounded, where we still cling to ego, pride, or desire. Instead of treating anger only as an enemy, we can use it as a mirror. Each burst of rage is a signal pointing us toward an unhealed part of ourselves. Seen in this way, anger becomes not just destructive but also instructive. When transformed, anger can fuel spiritual awakening. The energy of anger, instead of being wasted in conflict, can be redirected toward clarity and truth. This requires stillness, the willingness to pause and look inward rather than outward. Meditation, prayer, and mindful silence allow us to observe anger without being controlled by it. Spiritually, the greatest cost of anger is disconnection, both from ourselves and from the divine. The greatest gift of overcoming anger is rediscovering unity, the sense that life is not a battle to be won, but a mystery to be lived with openness and grace. Chapter 8: Anger in Society, How Collective Rage Shapes the World. Anger is not only personal. It spreads, it multiplies, and it takes root in communities and nations. When individuals carry unresolved anger, it easily merges into collective rage, shaping the tone of society in ways that are both visible and hidden. History shows us how collective anger has sparked revolutions, toppled governments, and fueled wars. While some anger has been used to fight injustice and bring change, the same energy has also destroyed cultures, families, and generations. What begins as a cry for fairness often grows into cycles of violence that continue long after the original cause is forgotten. Modern society is filled with triggers that feed anger. Economic inequality, political corruption, and cultural divisions leave people feeling unheard and powerless. Social media amplifies this, giving every emotion a stage and every conflict an audience. A single post can ignite outrage across the world within hours, creating waves of anger that spread faster than reason. The cost of collective anger is not only in conflict and violence, it also breeds fear and mistrust. Communities torn apart by anger lose their ability to work together, to see each other as human beings beyond differences. People begin to identify themselves only by what they oppose, rather than by what they can build together. In workplaces, collective anger creates toxic environments where employees feel undervalued and leaders become defensive. In families, generational anger passes down through harsh words and unresolved resentments. On a global scale, anger between nations locks humanity into endless cycles of rivalry, preventing cooperation on issues that affect us all, such as climate change, poverty, and peace. But just as individual anger can be transformed, so can collective rage. When societies learn to channel their anger into constructive action rather than destruction, real progress becomes possible. Movements rooted in compassion, nonviolence, and justice have changed the course of history, proving that anger does not have to burn, it can also illuminate. The hidden cost of collective anger is the future itself. Every moment spent in rage without resolution delays the progress humanity could be making toward unity and peace. Every society must ask, will we let our anger divide us, or will we transform it into strength that builds rather than destroys? Chapter 9: Healing Anger Tools for Transformation. Anger does not have to be a life sentence. Though its costs are heavy, its energy can be transformed. Healing anger is not about suppressing it or pretending it does not exist. It is about learning to meet it with awareness and guiding its power into something that serves rather than destroys. The first tool is awareness. Before we can change anything, we must see it clearly. Notice when anger rises. Pay attention to the thoughts that fuel it and the sensations in the body that accompany it. Awareness interrupts the automatic reaction, creating a small space between the emotion and the response. In that space lies freedom. The second tool is expression without harm. Anger wants to move, and if we bottle it up, it will erupt in harmful ways later. Healthy expression means finding outlets that release the energy without wounding others. This might be physical movement like exercise or creative release like writing or painting. Sometimes it is simply speaking honestly, but with respect and clarity instead of blame. The third tool is reflection. Ask what the anger is really pointing to. Often beneath the fire is hurt, fear, or disappointment. By addressing the root rather than the surface, the anger loses its grip. For example, instead of endlessly arguing with a partner about small annoyances, reflect on whether the deeper issue is a need for respect, appreciation, or safety. The fourth tool is forgiveness. This does not mean excusing harmful behavior or allowing injustice to continue. Forgiveness is the act of freeing ourselves from carrying the weight of anger any longer. It is choosing peace over poison. Many discover that forgiveness benefits them more than the one who caused the wound. The fifth tool is silence. Moments of stillness, whether through meditation, prayer, or simply pausing in nature, calm the restless fire. Silence cools the body, clears the mind, and softens the heart. In silence, anger loses its fuel, and clarity takes its place. Finally, love is the most powerful healer of anger. Love does not erase anger but transforms it. When we choose compassion, both for ourselves and others, the sharp edges of anger begin to smooth. Love reminds us that all human beings struggle, that mistakes are part of growth, and that understanding is stronger than resentment. Healing anger is a process, not a one-time act. Each day offers a chance to practice awareness, expression, reflection, forgiveness, silence, and love. Step by step, the fire that once consumed can become a light that guides. Chapter 10. The Freedom Beyond Anger. To live without the heavy chains of anger is to rediscover freedom. Imagine walking through life without the weight of grudges, without the endless replay of past hurts, without the constant tension that anger plants in the body and mind. This freedom is not a dream, it is a choice, one that becomes clearer each time we face anger with awareness instead of reaction. Freedom from anger is not the absence of feeling. It does not mean we become numb or indifferent. Instead, it means we no longer let anger rule us. We can feel it, acknowledge it, and allow it to pass like a storm. When the clouds clear, we return to the open sky of calmness and clarity. This freedom is spacious. It allows room for joy, creativity, and connection. Where anger builds walls, freedom opens doors. Relationships once burdened by resentment begin to breathe again. Work that once felt like a battlefield becomes a space for growth. The inner world, once filled with constant conflict, becomes a sanctuary of peace. The freedom beyond anger also brings strength. Many fear that letting go of anger makes them weak, but the opposite is true. Real strength is not in shouting the loudest or holding grudges the longest. Real strength is in mastering ourselves, in choosing peace when the easy path would be destruction. It takes courage to remain calm when provoked, and wisdom to respond with clarity rather than fire. Living free of anger does not mean life will never bring challenges. People will still disappoint, injustices will still arise, and frustrations will still knock at the door. But in freedom, we meet these moments differently. We respond instead of react. We act with purpose instead of impulse. We choose solutions instead of blame. At its heart, freedom beyond anger is love. Not sentimental love, but a deep recognition of the shared human struggle. It is the understanding that others like us are often acting out of their own pain and fears. When we see this, compassion flows more easily and the need for anger fades. The hidden cost of anger is heavy, but the gift of freedom is light. It is not found in avoiding emotion, but in transforming it. Each step toward awareness, forgiveness, and love is a step into a life where anger no longer robs us of peace. In the end, the freedom beyond anger is not just about personal healing. It ripples outward, touching families, communities, and even the world. A single person choosing peace over anger plants a seed that can inspire others to do the same. And from these small seeds, a more compassionate world can grow. If this journey touched you, do not just walk away in silence. Share this message so it reaches others who are still trapped in the fire of anger. Let them find the freedom you have discovered here. Like this if it awakens something in you. Subscribe if you are ready to walk further on this path. Together, we can turn pain into peace and chains into wings.